The sound of knuckles against wood echoed through my house at 7:43 p.m. on a Tuesday that had started like any other. I was in the kitchen, helping my girlfriend Emma prep vegetables for dinner, when that knock changed everything. I wasn't expecting anyone. Emma looked up from the cutting board, her blonde hair catching the overhead light. "You expecting someone, Jake?" "No," I said, wiping my hands on a dish towel. The knock came again, more insistent this time. 3 sharp raps that somehow felt familiar, though I couldn't place why. I walked through the living room, past the couch where Emma and I had spent countless evenings watching movies, past the bookshelf filled with novels we'd read together, past the framed photo of us hiking last summer. Everything in this house represented the life I'd built after the wreckage, the life I'd fought to create after Sarah left me 3 years ago. Through the peephole, I saw her. Sarah stood on my porch, but she wasn't alone. A double stroller sat beside her, and even through the distorted fisheye view, I could see 2 small bundles inside. Her dark hair was longer than I remembered, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore a faded blue jacket I didn't recognize and jeans that looked like she'd been living in them for days. My hand froze on the deadbolt. 3 years. 3 years since she'd walked out of this house to help her ex-boyfriend David through his illness. 3 years since I'd discovered she wasn't just helping him, she was building a life with him. 3 years since our divorce was finalized and I'd sworn I'd never let her hurt me again. "Jake?" Emma's voice came from behind me. "Who is it?" I couldn't answer. Couldn't move. Sarah knocked again, and this time I heard her voice through the door. "Jake, I know you're there. Please, I need to talk to you." The same voice that used to whisper good morning in my ear, the same voice that had told me she was leaving because David needed her more than I did. The same voice that had promised me it was temporary, that it was about compassion, not love. I'd believed her then, I'd actually helped her pack. "Jake?" Emma touched my shoulder. I turned to see concern in her green eyes. Emma, who'd never lied to me. Emma, who'd helped me understand what real love looked like. Emma, who was everything Sarah had never been. "It's my ex-wife," I said quietly. Emma's expression shifted, understanding flooding her features. She knew the story, knew how Sarah had left me for David, how I'd spent months in therapy trying to understand what I'd done wrong before realizing the problem had never been me. "What does she want?" Emma whispered. Another knock, more desperate now. "Jake, please. David died. He's gone, and I need help." David was dead. The man Sarah had chosen over me, the man she'd left our marriage to care for, was gone. I should have felt something, satisfaction, closure, vindication. Instead, I felt nothing but cold recognition of a pattern I'd seen before. Sarah only reached out when she needed something. I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. Through the 3-inch gap, I could see Sarah's face clearly for the first time in 3 years. She looked exhausted, older, with dark circles under her brown eyes. The babies in the stroller were sleeping, tiny faces peaceful under matching blue blankets. "Hello, Sarah." "Jake." Relief flooded her voice. "Thank God. I wasn't sure if you still lived here." "What do you want?" She glanced at the chain lock, then back at my face. "Can we talk, please? I know it's been a long time." 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days, I said. "But who's counting?" She winced. "Jake, I know you're angry." "I'm not angry," I interrupted. "Anger requires caring. What do you want, Sarah?" Her composure cracked slightly. "David died 2 weeks ago. Cancer. It spread faster than the doctors expected." She gestured toward the stroller. "These are his children, our children, twins. They're 6 months old." I looked at the babies again. David's children. Proof of the life she'd chosen instead of the one we'd built together. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said, and meant it. Whatever else David had been, he'd been a human being. "But I still don't know what you want from me." "I need help, Jake. I have nowhere to go. David's family cut me off after he died. They never accepted me. I lost my job because I took too much time off for his treatments. I'm behind on rent, and the landlord is evicting me next week." Her voice broke. "I know I don't have the right to ask, but—" "You're right," I said. "You don't. Jake, please. I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes. But these babies need stability, and you're the only person I can trust." Trust. The word hit me like a physical blow. This woman who'd lied to me for months, who'd built a secret life with another man while pretending our marriage still mattered, was talking about trust. "Where's your best friend Rebecca?" I asked. "The one who helped you move your stuff out? The one who told me I was too controlling and that you deserved better?" Sarah's face flushed. "Rebecca and I, We had a falling out. She said some things about David, about the babies. We're not speaking anymore. Of course. Rebecca had been Sarah's biggest cheerleader when she left me, had encouraged her to follow her heart and choose happiness. Now that Sarah's choice had led to single motherhood and financial ruin, Rebecca was nowhere to be found. What about your sister? Your parents? My parents are in Arizona now. They can barely take care of themselves. And Lisa... Sarah's voice trailed off. Lisa said I made my bed. Everyone who'd supported her decision to leave me had abandoned her now that the consequences were clear. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jake? Emma's voice came from behind me. Is everything okay? Sarah's eyes widened as she took in the implication. You have someone new. I do. I felt Emma's hand on my back, warm and reassuring. Emma, this is Sarah. Sarah, Emma. Hi, Emma said politely, though I could hear the tension in her voice. Sarah stared at Emma for a long moment, then back at me. How long? 2 years, I said. We're engaged. It wasn't technically true. We'd talked about marriage but hadn't made it official, but I wanted Sarah to understand that my life had moved on, that whatever she was hoping for, it wasn't going to happen. Engaged, Sarah repeated, the word hollow in her mouth. One of the babies stirred in the stroller, making a soft sound. Sarah's attention snapped back to them, her maternal instincts kicking in even in the middle of this conversation. They're beautiful, Emma said, and I could tell she meant it. Emma loved children, had always wanted them. We talked about starting a family after we got married. Thank you, Sarah said softly. This is Michael and Matthew. They're good babies. They sleep through the night now, and they're not fussy eaters. They wouldn't be any trouble, I promise. The implication hung in the air like smoke. She wasn't just asking for help, she was asking to move in, to bring David's children into the home I'd built with Emma. Sarah, I said carefully, what exactly are you asking me to do? She took a deep breath. I need a place to stay, just temporarily, until I get back on my feet. I can help with housework, cooking, whatever you need. The babies won't be any trouble. I just need time to find a job, save some money, get my own place. You want to move in here? Just temporarily, she repeated. A few months, maybe less. Jake, I know how this sounds, but you're the only person who's ever really cared about me. The only person I can count on. The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost admired it. Appeal to my ego, remind me of our history, make me feel like the hero in her story. It was the same technique she'd used when she wanted to leave for David, making me feel like supporting her decision was the noble thing to do. Sarah, I said, do you remember what you told me when you left? Her face went pale. Jake, you said David understood you in a way I never could. You said he needed you more than I did. You said I was strong enough to handle being alone, but he wasn't. The words came out steady, controlled. I'd practiced this conversation in my head 1,000 times. You were right about one thing. I was strong enough to handle being alone, strong enough to rebuild, strong enough to find someone who actually wants to be with me. I made mistakes, Sarah whispered. I know that. But Jake, these babies are not my responsibility, I finished. They're David's children, the children you chose to have with the man you chose over me. One of the babies started crying, a thin wail that cut through the evening air. Sarah immediately reached into the stroller, lifting a small bundle and rocking it gently. The sight stirred something in me, not desire to help, but recognition of how completely her life had changed. I can't do this alone, she said, tears starting to flow. I'm not strong like you. I never was. I need help, and you're the only person who's ever really loved me. Loved, I said, past tense. The words hit her like a slap. She stared at me, holding the crying baby, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd once married, the woman I'd thought I'd spend my life with. Jake, please, I'm begging you. I have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem anymore, Sarah. What about compassion? What about doing the right thing? You mean the same compassion you showed me when you were building a secret life with David? The same right thing you did when you chose him over our marriage? She flinched. I know I hurt you. You destroyed me, I said quietly. You made me question everything about myself. You made me think I wasn't enough, wasn't worthy of love. It took me 2 years of therapy to understand that the problem was never me. Emma's hand tightened on my back. I could feel her support, her love, radiating through that simple touch. It reminded me of everything I had to protect. I'm different now, Sarah said desperately. I've learned from my mistakes. I know what I lost when I left you. You didn't lose me, Sarah. You threw me away. The baby's crying intensified, and the second one began to stir. Sarah looked overwhelmed, bouncing the first baby while trying to keep the second one calm. "I'll do anything," she said. "I'll sign papers saying it's temporary. I'll pay rent as soon as I can. I'll stay out of your way. Please, Jake. These babies need a stable home." "Then you should have thought about that before you had them with a dying man." The cruelty of my words surprised even me, but I didn't take them back. Sarah's face crumpled, and she clutched the baby tighter. "He wasn't supposed to die this soon," she whispered. "The doctor said he had years. We were going to get married, buy a house. We had plans." "You had plans with me, too," I reminded her. "Until something better came along." It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that." The second baby was crying now, both infants filling the evening air with their distress. Sarah looked frantic, trying to comfort both of them while standing on my porch. Her life packed into a double stroller and whatever luggage she'd left in her car. For a moment, just a moment, I felt sorry for her. She'd made her choice based on love, or what she thought was love, and now she was paying the price. But then I remembered the months of lies, the gaslighting, the way she'd made me feel like I was crazy for questioning her story. I remembered the divorce papers, the division of assets, the way she'd fought for everything she could get while claiming she just wanted to be fair. "I'm not raising David's children," I said finally. "And I'm not saving you from your choices." "Jake?" "The answer is no, Sarah. Find somewhere else to go." I started to close the door, but she stepped forward, desperation making her bold. "What if they were your children?" she asked. "What if we'd had babies together? Would you turn them away?" "But they're not my children," I said. "They're his, the man you chose instead of me." "I chose wrong," she cried. "I know that now. I should have stayed with you." "Yes," I agreed. "You should have. But you didn't." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt, cutting off whatever else she might have said. Through the wood, I could hear her sobbing, the babies crying, the sound of her voice trying to soothe them. Emma wrapped her arms around me from behind, holding me tight. "Are you okay?" she whispered. I leaned back into her embrace, feeling the solid warmth of her body, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. This was real. This was home. This was the life I'd chosen after Sarah had shown me what I didn't want. "I'm okay," I said, and realized I meant it. The crying outside continued for several more minutes, then gradually faded as Sarah presumably took the babies back to her car. I didn't look through the peephole to watch her leave. I didn't want to see her defeated form pushing that stroller away from my door. I'd spent too many years caring about Sarah's pain. Tonight, I chose to care about my own peace instead. Emma and I returned to the kitchen, to our half-prepared dinner, to our quiet evening routine. But something had shifted. Sarah's appearance had reminded me of everything I'd overcome, everything I'd built, everything I had to protect. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Emma asked as she resumed chopping vegetables. "Sarah always lands on her feet," I said. "She'll find someone else to save her. She always does." But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Sarah's support system had crumbled along with her fairy tale ending. The people who'd encouraged her to leave me had disappeared now that she needed actual help. She was truly alone for perhaps the first time in her life. I pushed the thought away. Sarah's problems were no longer mine to solve. I'd learned that lesson the hard way, and I wasn't going to forget it now. Outside, a car engine started and drove away. Sarah was gone, taking her babies and her desperation with her. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. All from numbers I didn't recognize, but the content made it clear who was behind them. "Jake, this is Rebecca. Sarah told me what happened last night. How could you be so heartless?" "This is Sarah's sister, Lisa. I know we've had our differences, but those babies need help." "Jake, it's Tom from the old neighborhood." Sarah reached out to me. "Man, I think you should reconsider." I showed the messages to Emma over coffee. She read through them with increasing disbelief. "She's mobilizing an army," Emma said, handing my phone back. "How many people did she contact?" "Looks like everyone we used to know." I scrolled through more messages. Rebecca, Lisa, Tom, my old coworker Mike, even my cousin Danny. "The same Rebecca who told you that you were controlling?" "The very same." I found Rebecca's number and showed Emma the string of increasingly angry messages. "Look at this progression. It starts with 'please reconsider' and ends with 'you're a monster who abandoned innocent children.'" Emma shook her head. "She's rewriting history, making herself the victim and you the villain." My phone rang. I glanced at the screen, my cousin Danny. "Don't answer it," Emma said. "I should. Danny's not usually one to get involved in drama. If Sarah got to him, she's really pulling out all the stops. I answered, "Hey, Danny." "Jake, what the hell, man?" Sarah called me crying about how you slammed the door in her face. She's got 2 babies and nowhere to go. Did she mention why she has 2 babies, Danny? She said her boyfriend died. Cancer. Did she mention that the boyfriend was her ex? The one she left me for? Silence on the other end. Then, she said it was complicated. It's not complicated. She divorced me to be with him, had his kids. Now he's dead, and she wants me to clean up the mess. But Jake, those babies are not my responsibility, I finished. Danny, would you take in your ex-wife's kids if she left you for another man? Another pause. That's different. How? Because you're better than that. You always were the good guy, Jake. The one who did the right thing. There it was, the same manipulation Sarah had tried. Appeal to my identity as the good guy, make me feel like helping her, was part of who I was supposed to be. Being the good guy doesn't mean being a doormat, I said. Sarah made her choice. I'm living with mine. What choice? To abandon children? To protect the family I actually chose. I looked at Emma, who was listening with a concerned expression. Danny, I'm engaged. I have a life here. I'm not going to blow it up because Sarah's life fell apart. You're engaged? Danny's voice shifted. Sarah didn't mention that. I'm sure she didn't mention a lot of things, like how she fought for half my assets in the divorce, or how she told me I was too boring, too predictable, too safe, or how she said David understood her in ways I never could. Jesus, Jake, I didn't know. Because Sarah only tells people what serves her narrative. She's good at that. After I hung up, Emma reached across the table and took my hand. How many more calls do you think you'll get? Probably a lot. Sarah's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. I was right. My phone rang constantly throughout the day. Old friends, distant relatives, even my former boss called to check in and somehow ended up mentioning Sarah's situation. Each conversation followed the same pattern: initial concern for me, followed by a pitch for why I should help Sarah. The text messages were worse. Screenshots of the babies, heart-wrenching descriptions of Sarah's financial situation, guilt trips about my moral obligation to help innocent children. Rebecca was particularly persistent, sending long messages about how disappointed she was in me, how she'd thought I was better than this. The same Rebecca who called me controlling and possessive when Sarah left, I told Emma. Now I'm heartless for not taking them back. It's classic manipulation, Emma said. You're either the perfect hero who saves everyone, or you're the villain who abandons them. There's no middle ground where you're just a person with boundaries. By evening, I'd had enough. I composed a group text to everyone who'd contacted me. I understand Sarah has reached out to many of you about her situation. I want to be clear. Sarah left our marriage to build a life with another man. She succeeded. The consequences of that choice, including the children she had with him, are her responsibility, not mine. I will not be taking her in, supporting her financially, or raising another man's children. If you're genuinely concerned about her welfare, I encourage you to offer your own assistance. Please don't contact me about this again. I sent it to everyone and then blocked the numbers I didn't recognize. The people who actually mattered in my life would respect my decision. The rest could think whatever they wanted. Emma read the message and nodded approvingly. Perfect. Clear, factual, and final. I hope so. But I knew Sarah wasn't done. She'd never been the type to accept defeat gracefully. I was right about Sarah not giving up. When the phone campaign failed, she tried a different approach. 3 days after our porch conversation, I came home from work to find her car parked across the street. She was sitting in the driver's seat, the babies visible in car seats in the back. She'd been there long enough that neighbors had started to notice. How long has she been there? I asked Mrs. Patterson, my elderly next-door neighbor, who was watering her garden with suspicious frequency. About 2 hours, Mrs. Patterson said. She knocked on my door asking about you, seemed very upset, said something about her children needing their father. Their father. Sarah was now claiming I was the baby's father. The lie was so brazen it took my breath away. Mrs. Patterson, those aren't my children. That's my ex-wife. We've been divorced for 3 years. Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted from sympathy to confusion. Oh, she said. Well, she was crying quite a bit. I may have misunderstood. I doubted Mrs. Patterson had misunderstood anything. Sarah had deliberately misled her, counting on the fact that I'd be too polite to make a scene correcting the record. Emma arrived home 20 minutes later, pulling into our driveway while Sarah watched from across the street. I met Emma at her car. She's been here for hours, I said quietly, telling the neighbors the babies are mine. Emma glanced toward Sarah's car. What's her endgame here? Public pressure? Probably. Make me look like the deadbeat dad who won't take responsibility for his children. As if she'd heard us, Sarah got out of her car and started walking toward us. She moved slowly, deliberately, giving the neighbors plenty of time to watch the drama unfold. Jake, she called out, her voice carrying across the street. Please, the boys are hungry, and I don't have money for formula. It was a performance, designed for maximum sympathy. Sarah had always been good at reading a room, at knowing exactly what to say to get people on her side. Sarah, you need to leave, I said firmly but quietly. This is harassment. I'm not harassing anyone. I'm trying to talk to my children's father. There it was again. The lie, spoken loudly enough for Mrs. Patterson and the other neighbors to hear. Those are not my children, I said, raising my voice to match hers. They are David Morrison's children. David Morrison, the man you left me for 3 years ago. Sarah's face flushed, but she pressed on. Jake, please, don't do this in front of the neighbors. You're the one doing this in front of the neighbors, Emma said, stepping forward. You're the one who's been sitting here for hours, telling people lies about my fiancé. Sarah's attention shifted to Emma, and I saw something cold flash in her eyes. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does, Emma replied calmly. This is my home, too, and you're harassing my family. Your family? Sarah laughed bitterly. He was my family first. We were married for 6 years. And then you divorced him, Emma said, for another man, who you had children with. So no, Jake is not your family anymore. I watched the exchange with a mixture of pride and concern. Emma was handling herself well, but I didn't want her to have to fight my battles. Sarah, I said, you have 5 minutes to get in your car and leave, or I'm calling the police. For what? I'm not on your property. For harassment. For making false claims about paternity. For stalking. Sarah's composure cracked slightly. I'm not stalking anyone. I'm trying to have a conversation with the father of my children. David Morrison was the father of your children, I said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. David Morrison, your boyfriend who died 2 weeks ago, the man you left your husband for. These are his children, not mine. The neighbors who'd been pretending to garden or check their mail were now openly staring. Sarah realized she was losing the narrative battle and tried a different tactic. Jake, you're embarrassing me in front of everyone. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm just telling the truth. The truth? Sarah's voice rose. The truth is that you're abandoning 2 innocent babies because you're too proud to forgive me for making a mistake. The truth is that you made a choice. You chose David. You chose to have his children. You chose to build a life with him instead of me. Those choices have consequences. He's dead, Jake. David is dead. These babies have no one. They have you, I said. Their mother. The woman who chose to bring them into the world with a dying man. It was cruel, but it was also honest. Sarah had known David was sick when she left me for him. She'd known the risks when she got pregnant. She'd made her choices with full knowledge of the potential consequences. Sarah started crying. Not the quiet tears of genuine emotion, but the loud, dramatic sobs designed to make me look like a monster for not comforting her. I can't do this alone, she wailed. I need help. I need you. You should have thought about that before you left. One of the babies started crying in the car, the sound carrying across the street. Sarah's maternal instincts kicked in, and she hurried back to tend to them. I watched her struggle to comfort the child while maintaining her dramatic pose for the neighbors. We should go inside, Emma said quietly. She was right. The longer we stood out here, the more it looked like a family drama instead of what it really was. A manipulative woman trying to guilt-trip her ex-husband into solving her problems. But as we turned toward the house, Sarah called out again, Jake, these boys deserve to know their father. I stopped, turned around, walked back toward her car, with Emma close behind. Sarah, I said, my voice deadly calm, if you ever again claim that I am the father of those children, I will sue you for defamation. If you ever again show up at my house uninvited, I will file a restraining order. If you ever again harass my neighbors with lies about me, I will call the police. Are we clear? Sarah stared at me, apparently shocked by the steel in my voice. Jake, Are we clear? She nodded reluctantly. Good. Now leave. Don't come back. Don't call me. Don't contact my friends or family. Don't drive by my house. Don't send other people to plead your case. Find someone else to solve your problems. I turned and walked back to the house, Emma beside me. Behind us, I heard Sarah's car start and drive away. Inside, Emma poured herself a glass of wine with shaking hands. That was intense, she said. She's desperate. Desperate people escalate. Do you think she'll actually stay away now? I considered the question. Sarah had always been persistent when she wanted something, and right now she wanted my help more than she'd ever wanted anything. The public shaming hadn't worked. The guilt campaign hadn't worked. She'd try something else. No, I said finally. She won't stay away. She'll just try a different approach. I was right, but I had no idea how far she was willing to go. Sarah's next move came through my workplace. I was in the middle of a client meeting when my boss, Gary, knocked on my office door. Jake, can I see you for a minute? I excused myself and followed Gary to his office, where he closed the door and gestured for me to sit. I got an interesting call this morning, Gary said. A woman claiming to be your ex-wife. She said you're behind on child support payments and that she's considering legal action. My blood turned to ice. Gary, I don't have any children. That's what I figured, since you've never mentioned any. But she was pretty convincing. Said you've been avoiding her calls, that she's desperate to feed her babies. She's lying. I pulled out my phone and showed Gary my divorce decree. We divorced 3 years ago. No children, no alimony, no ongoing obligations of any kind. Gary studied the document, then looked back at me. So what's her angle here? She left me for another man, had kids with him, he died, and now she wants me to take care of them. And you said no. I said no. Gary nodded slowly. Jake, I've known you for 5 years. You're one of the most honest people I've ever worked with. But this woman, she sounded really convincing. If I didn't know you better, I might have believed her. She's good at manipulation, always has been. Well, she's also calling other people. She somehow got the number for our main office and spoke to Jennifer in HR. Claimed you were dodging your responsibilities as a father. This was escalating beyond anything I'd imagined. Sarah wasn't just trying to guilt me into helping her. She was actively trying to destroy my reputation and career. Gary, I need to be very clear about something. Those children are not mine. I have never been late on child support because I don't owe any child support. If Sarah contacts this office again, please don't engage with her. Refer her to our legal department. Already done, Gary said. But Jake, you might want to consider getting ahead of this. If she's willing to call your workplace, she might try other things. Gary was right. I spent my lunch break calling a lawyer. You need a restraining order. The attorney, David Chen, told me after I'd explained the situation. What she's doing constitutes harassment, and the false claims about paternity could be considered defamation. How long does that take? We can file the paperwork today. You'll get a temporary order within 48 hours, and a hearing for a permanent order within 2 weeks. Do it. I also called Emma to warn her about what was happening. She's escalating. Called my work, told them I'm behind on child support for kids that aren't mine. Jesus, Jake, she's really lost it. I'm getting a restraining order. But Emma, she might try to contact your work too, or your family. I want you to be prepared. My family already knows about Sarah, and my boss wouldn't believe some random woman calling with drama, but I appreciate the heads up. That evening, I drafted emails to my close friends and family members, explaining the situation before Sarah could reach them with her version of events. I was tired of being reactive, tired of having to defend myself against her lies. It was time to control the narrative. The restraining order was served 2 days later. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong again. Sarah's response to the restraining order was to double down on her public campaign. She created a Facebook page called Justice for Michael and Matthew, with photos of the twins and a long post about how their father had abandoned them in their time of need. She didn't use my name, but she included enough identifying details that people who knew me would recognize the story. The post was shared dozens of times, with comments ranging from sympathy for Sarah to outrage at the unnamed deadbeat father. Emma found the page first and showed it to me over breakfast. Look at this, she said, scrolling through the comments. She's got people donating money to a GoFundMe, raising money based on lies about you. I read through Sarah's post, marveling at her ability to reframe the situation. According to her version, I was a heartless man who'd turned his back on his responsibilities and left 2 innocent babies to suffer. There was no mention of David, no mention of her affair, no mention of our divorce. Just a sob story about a struggling single mother and her cruel ex. This is defamation, I said. Clear, actionable defamation. I forwarded the screenshots to my lawyer, who agreed to pursue legal action. But legal action takes time, and Sarah's lies were spreading faster than I could counter them. The breaking point came when Emma's sister called her, upset and confused. Emma, I saw something on Facebook about Jake abandoning his children. What's going on? Emma had to spend 20 minutes explaining the real situation to her sister, who'd been ready to drive down and confront me personally about my supposed abandonment of my children. "This has to stop," Emma said after she hung up. "She's poisoning everyone against you." "I know, but what can I do? Sue her? That'll take months, and in the meantime, she keeps spreading lies. Maybe it's time to fight fire with fire." I looked at Emma, surprised by the steel in her voice. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe it's time to tell your side of the story, publicly." Emma was right. I'd been playing defense, trying to quietly correct Sarah's lies while she shouted them from the rooftops. It was time to go on offense. That night, I created my own Facebook post. I included screenshots of my divorce decree, photos of Sarah and David together from her old social media posts, and a detailed timeline of events. I didn't attack Sarah personally, but I laid out the facts clearly and let people draw their own conclusions. The response was immediate and overwhelming. People who'd been sympathetic to Sarah's story were suddenly asking hard questions. Why hadn't she mentioned being divorced? Why hadn't she mentioned David? Why was she claiming Jake was the father when the timeline clearly showed the children were conceived during her relationship with someone else? Sarah's support began to crumble as the truth spread. The donations to her GoFundMe slowed, then stopped. Comments on her page shifted from supportive to skeptical to outright hostile. But Sarah wasn't done. When the truth destroyed her victim narrative, she tried one last, desperate gambit. She claimed I was the one harassing her. Sarah's counter-accusation came in the form of a police report claiming I was stalking her. According to her statement, I'd been following her, threatening her, and making her fear for her safety and the safety of her children. The police officer who came to my door was professional, but serious. "Mr. Anderson, we've received a complaint about harassment and stalking. I need to ask you some questions." I invited Officer Martinez inside and showed him the restraining order I'd filed against Sarah, along with the documentation my lawyer had prepared. "So you're saying she's the one harassing you?" Officer Martinez asked. "That's exactly what I'm saying. She's been calling my workplace, spreading lies about me on social media, and showing up at my house uninvited. I have a restraining order against her, not the other way around." Officer Martinez reviewed the paperwork, then looked up at me. "Mr. Anderson, do you have any idea why she might claim you're stalking her?" "Because her other tactics aren't working. She wants me to take her in, support her financially, and help raise her children. When I refused, she started a campaign to pressure me into changing my mind. When that backfired, she's trying to make me look like the aggressor." "And these children, are they yours?" "No, they're the children of David Morrison, the man she left me for. David died 2 weeks ago, and now Sarah wants me to clean up the mess." Officer Martinez nodded slowly. "Mr. Anderson, I'm going to be straight with you. This kind of a said-she-said situation is complicated, but the fact that you have a restraining order against her, filed before her complaint, works in your favor. It suggests you were the one seeking protection, not the one causing problems. What happens now?" "I'll file my report, noting the conflicting claims and the existing restraining order. If she wants to pursue charges, she'll need evidence. Photos, witnesses, documentation, same as you would if you wanted to pursue charges against her." After Officer Martinez left, I called my lawyer to update him on the situation. "This is actually good news," David Chen said. "False police reports can be prosecuted. If she can't provide evidence of stalking, and she can't, because you haven't been stalking her, it strengthens our defamation case." "How long before this is resolved?" "The restraining order hearing is next week. If the judge grants a permanent order, and if Sarah can't provide evidence for her stalking claims, this should all be over soon." The hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning. I took the day off work and met my lawyer at the courthouse. Sarah was there with a public defender, looking tired and desperate. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense, reviewed both sides' evidence quickly. "Ms. Morrison," the judge said. Sarah had apparently taken David's last name, though I wasn't sure if they'd ever actually married. "You're claiming Mr. Anderson has been stalking you, but you provide no evidence. No photos, no witnesses, no documentation of contact after he filed for a restraining order against you. Your Honor, he's been harassing me online, posting lies about me on social media. Mr. Anderson posted factual information about your divorce and the paternity of your children in response to false claims you made about him. That's not harassment, that's self-defense." The judge turned to me. "Mr. Anderson, you're seeking a permanent restraining order based on Ms. Morrison's repeated unwanted contact, false claims about paternity, and attempts to damage your reputation and career." "Yes, Your Honor." "And you have documentation of these incidents?" My lawyer handed over a thick folder of evidence, screenshots of Sarah's social media posts, records of her calls to my workplace, witness statements from neighbors, copies of the false police report. The judge reviewed the materials for several minutes, then looked up. Ms. Morrison, your behavior as documented here is clearly harassment. You've made false claims about Mr. Anderson being the father of your children, contacted his workplace with lies about unpaid child support, and created social media campaigns designed to damage his reputation. This court grants a permanent restraining order. You are to have no contact with Mr. Anderson, direct or indirect. You are not to go to his home, his workplace, or any location where you know he'll be present. You are not to contact his family, friends, or colleagues. You are not to post about him on social media or make any public statements about him. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest and prosecution. Sarah started to protest, but her public defender quickly hushed her. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for possible prosecution for filing a false police report and defamation. Ms. Morrison, I strongly suggest you focus your energy on caring for your children rather than harassing your ex-husband. As we left the courthouse, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. It was over. Sarah was legally prohibited from contacting me, and if she tried, she'd face arrest. What happens now? I asked my lawyer. Now you go home and live your life. If she violates the restraining order, call the police immediately. Otherwise, this chapter is closed. I drove home to find Emma waiting with a bottle of champagne and a smile that lit up the room. How did it go? Permanent restraining order. She's done. Emma threw her arms around me, and I held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the solid reality of her presence. It's over, I said, as much to myself as to her. It's over, she agreed. That night, we celebrated quietly, just the two of us, in the home we'd built together. The home Sarah had tried to invade, tried to destroy, tried to reclaim. But it was ours, and it would remain ours. 3 months later, Emma and I got married in a small ceremony in our backyard, surrounded by the people who actually mattered in our lives. People who knew the truth about us, who supported our relationship, who didn't try to manipulate or guilt us into making decisions that served their interests instead of our own. I never heard from Sarah again. The restraining order held, and eventually the legal threats faded into memory. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved to another state, found some kind of support system, was getting by. I hoped, for the sake of those children, that she'd learned something from the experience. But it wasn't my problem anymore. Emma and I went on to have children of our own, 2 daughters who grew up knowing they were wanted, planned for, and loved by both their parents. Children who would never doubt their place in our family, never question whether they were valued, never be used as weapons in adult conflicts. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about the path not taken. What would have happened if I'd said yes that night when Sarah showed up on my porch? If I'd let guilt and misplaced compassion override my judgment? If I'd prioritized being seen as the good guy over protecting the life I'd actually chosen? I would have destroyed everything Emma and I had built together. I would have enabled Sarah's irresponsibility and taught her that manipulation and lies were effective tools for getting what she wanted. I would have raised children who weren't mine while resenting them for representing Sarah's betrayal. I would have sacrificed my happiness, Emma's happiness, and our future children's happiness for the sake of appearing noble. Instead, I'd chosen truth over comfort, boundaries over guilt, and my actual family over my former one. It had been the right choice then, and it remained the right choice now. Sarah had made her bed when she left me for David. She'd made it again when she decided to have children with a dying man. She'd made it a 3rd time when she chose manipulation and lies over honest accountability for her choices. I wasn't responsible for the consequences of her decisions. I never had been, and I never would be.